because it's important to talk about the falling rupee. It's in a complete free fall. And people who were talking about the dignity of the rupee and the dignity of the country and the dignity of the prime minister and all of that today are absolutely silent. The prime minister refuses to even utter the word rupee. You want to look at a logical explanation from this government on the free fall in the rupee, you get some astrological predictions and astrological findings from the finance minister. Maybe she'll turn around and say she doesn't use the rupee either. Maybe she's trading in some other denominations. But to put it very briefly, for the first time ever in our history, it's the gross economic mismanagement of the Modi government which has resulted in the Indian currency breaching the 80 to a dollar mark. And Mr. Modi, who used to talk about the Prime Minister's prestige, is conspicuously silent. There is a lurking suspicion, is the government looking the other way? And if it does so, will the rupee, is there fear that the rupee will breach another mark and head towards 100 trajectory just like petrol did? Mr. Modi seems to be rather toxic for the rupee. He said we need a strong PM. Well, if he calls himself a strong PM, he has made the rupee weakest in the last 8 years of being in government. The Indian currency has lost 7% in value in the last 6 months alone. And no, the government cannot hide behind either Corona or the Ukraine-Russia crisis, because when we demitted office in 2014, the rupee was trading at 58 to a dollar mark, which has now breached 80 to a dollar mark. What explains the 22 rupee fall against the US dollar? The government has to speak up. Is this restricted only to North Block and the RBI and the Sensex? No. A falling rupee impacts every citizen of this country. It is going to raise prices further. Prices of essential items like gas, cooking gas, diesel, petrol will be dearer. Because prices of fuel is going to be dearer, the price of transportation, the cost of transportation is going to be more expensive. TV, refrigerator, mobile phones, electronic items that import a lot of their parts are going to be very costly. And it will also have an impact eventually on our domestic household budgets, because cooking oil will be more expensive since we import some parts of it. And the government has to wake up and take notice, because people are reeling under high prices. The finance minister has washed off her hands saying, "Wo to lesan pyaz nahi khati hain." What about the people who will be further impacted by a falling rupee and rising prices? Can this be controlled? Absolutely it can be. In 2013, when Ben Bernanke uttered the word taper for the US Federal Reserves, the rupee, like a lot of currencies, fell. It was in a tailspin. It fell by 15% between May to August of 2013. But due to a multi-pronged approach and a joint effort by the UPA government and the RBI headed by Raghuram Rajan then, we could arrest the fall in the rupee. The rupee that had fallen from 59 to a dollar to 69 to a dollar, we brought it back to 58 to a dollar within that year itself. $12 billion worth of foreign investment had left this country during taper tantrum. $35 billion worth of investment came back. We unlocked projects that were bottlenecked. We raised the GDP by 2 percentage points in that year itself. And that is what being attentive, that is what using multi-pronged approach, that is what admission of a problem and resolving it is concerned. What is happening today? Is the RBI not working? I'm sure they are. They have spent about $40 billion from January to date this year itself, and they're still not being able to arrest the fall in the rupee. Why? Because foreign investors and investors at large have no faith whatsoever in Mr. Modi, his government, and his policies. Crony capitalism could be one of the reasons. The policy flip-flops could be one of the reasons. The absolute denial of a problem and the denial to address that problem is perhaps one of the reasons. But investors have zero faith in the policies of this government, which is evident in the economic collapse and the rupee in a free fall. One thing is absolutely clear, that the Prime Minister and his army of sycophants who used to worry a lot about the rupee when it was at 58, refused to utter a word when the rupee has breached 80. This pin drop silence is not going to resolve the problem. And quite evidently, there are two big reasons for the rupee to fall. The falling rupee is a consequence of a ruined economy and high inflation. But the government, once again, seems absolutely directionless. And I don't think it will be wrong to say that Mr. Modi, who thought he was the solution to everything that ailed India before he came in his mind, or perceptionally, is proving to be extremely toxic for the Indian economy, for the Indian rupee, and the prestige of our currency. The first and the immediate step that has to be taken by the government is to accept that the rupee is in a free fall. To wake up and smell the coffee. The rupee has crossed 80 to a dollar mark. It's a huge, huge breach of the rupee. It's making life tough for children who study overseas. It's making life tough for our domestic audience, our domestic industries. It's going to make life tough for every Indian because it's going to raise prices further. So first, admit that the rupee is in a free fall. Look for reasons why this is happening. Prima facie, high inflation and a ruined economy is one of the reasons. What is the government doing to address high inflation? And it's a vicious cycle. The costlier the rupee, the higher the inflation, it feeds into the rupee breaching and stooping even lower. So one has to understand, what is the government's game plan? The government seems to be in denial. We just heard the finance minister say that we are watching and, it's all right. It's happening to the... How many reasons are you going to fight to hide behind? You want to hide behind Corona. Now you want to hide behind a global crisis. Third, you want to hide behind Russia, Ukraine. But please learn from lessons of the past. In 2013, Congress सरकार ने taper tantrum के दौरान रुपए को मजबूत बनाए रखा.